Mezco Homecoming Spider-Man is in the DorkLair. Welcome to another DorkLair action figure review. Today I'm taking a look at the Mezco 112 Collective Homecoming Spider-Man Regular Edition. This is the Tony Stark tech suit that he wears throughout most of the movie, and this is added to the other Homecoming figure, which was the homemade suit, which is, in my opinion, one of the best MCU figures they've done so far. Although I guess they're all really good that I have, and there's not a ton of them, but still. The MCU is coming out really well. This is a nice addition. I don't think it's quite as good as the Homecoming homemade suit, just because of a couple little QC issues and some articulation problems. Most of the articulation is really good, in my opinion, on it, but there's one particular spot, the neck, where it just falls way short for me. I need neck articulation. If a figure is going to have this much articulation, it really needs to have that neck articulation. But you can see, like, the suit looks awesome. It's just a striking figure. It looks a lot like a lot like it does in the movie. So yeah, I think it's a great looking figure. Couple gripes, but let's get into the review. And taking a quick look at the packaging before we get into the review, just give it a little 360 here. It's got the logo on the side, nice shiny logo emblem there. Picture of the figure on the back, various poses and glam shots, another spider logo on the side, and the front again. Classic Mezco box, really big but high quality. And looking at the paint, sculpt, and details on the figure, starting with the head sculpt, you'll see those eyes are slightly off-centered, but of the three heads that I have, out of the box, this one was the straightest. So you can see that there's just a little bit off-centering. This one's actually pretty straight, which is nice because it's like the main head with the biggest eyes. And so this one out of the box is straight. But it's a big disappointment that the other two were crooked, and we'll get into that after when we do the accessories. But the lines are sculpted and painted very straight and crisp. So I don't really see too many issues with the lines being mispainted or anything like that. So those look pretty good. Nice crisp sculpt and paintwork on the head. It's just the eyes that are a little bit crooked. And you can work your way down the neck. That's also sculpted plastic. Pretty crisp there too. As you move into the red part of the body, that's all an overlaid vinyl pleather type of a material, and it does a good job. It looks nice. One of the nice things about it is it kind of is thin enough to capture a little bit of the texture of the suit underneath through it, so that helps carry over some of the texture and kind of give the illusion of continuity from the plastic neck to the fabric torso, which is a nice thing. You can see it right there in the light. And the lines are nice and straight, painted well, or printed well, however. This piece is a little bit raised up higher, as are these on the side. So there's like a little bit of extra overlay on that. It's just a little more textured there. And then these are sculpted in here. They're not terribly detailed in terms of their paint, but nice touch. And the suit itself, I love. I love the blue part of it. It's got, it's basically like a spandex material, but it's got all the lines and paneling and all the technical sort of instrumentation or whatever. And then you have the spider on the back. That's also that same overlay as the rest of it. Stitching looks pretty good. You can see it, but it's not crazy. Blends in fairly well to these other lines. Moving down, this is one issue that a lot of the figures have, where this just sags low at the crotch, and it's just not a tight fit. So you can kind of shift it up and get it a little bit tighter, but in some pictures it just looks like the distance from here to here is long, and it gives a weird illusion to it. So sort of a little bit of a sag there in the middle. There's a few figures like the Batman Beyond has that problem, and a couple others. I think Shazam might have that issue as well. But really nice looking material. And then you can see the sculpt work on the boots and the paint as well. Again, this is plastic down here. Nicely detailed figure. Hands. There's the web shooters sculpted in right here. And unfortunately, there's no wrist. I mean, there's a tiny bit of wrist swivel, but it's not really functional over here. So if you want to twist the hand around, you're going to misalign the shooters, and it's going to be a little weird looking, but I don't really care about that. Does not detract from the figure at all for me. And just for a couple side-by-side with some other Spider-Man figures and then with the MCU stuff. So starting off with Mezco Spider-Man over here. Very similar height, but the build is much, much different. The comic Spider-Man is going to be a lot more, kind of unrealistic, I guess, or exaggerated. Same thing here. This is another one. This is taller. This is the Mezco regular classic Spider-Man. Of the three, this right now is my favorite, but they're all really good. I would say this is my favorite. This has the best articulation, and this one's kind of in the middle, I would say. So it's kind of weird. It's like, what do you want? Like, this one's pretty well articulated for Mezco, the new one, but I just really love the look overall of this guy, and the articulation on this one is just madness. It's just so good. It's really neat and fun to play with that figure. Okay, and then going into the MCU for Mezco, here's the homemade suit, and I'm fairly certain, I can't definitely say because I'm not going to take my figures apart, but I'm fairly certain they're on the same, if not a very similar base body type. And then you have Black Panther over here, and then finally the Thor figure. So coming along, I really, really dig the MCU in the direction that it's going for Mezco. It's coming along really nicely. I'm loving these figures. These are 4 of my favorite Mezcos, quite frankly. Maybe this one's a little bit on a lesser tier than the other ones because we'll get to some of the problems I have with it. But generally, these 4, the MCU is coming out great. Love it. Okay, and for accessories, he comes with 3 heads. So he's got a regular sized eyes, head, and then a sort of slightly squinting head, and then a more extreme squinting head. So 3 levels of squintiness. And this is where one of my big gripes comes in. So this is the regular squinty one, or the deep squint, I guess you might call it. And as you can see, if you look closely and look at the lines, and you'll see that it's quite off-centered. Let me actually just turn the brightness up a little bit here. But you can see that it's cocked a little bit, and then it's also shifted this way in. So these are off-centered, and I gotta fix that. The other one, I'll put up a picture, but I actually was able to mess around with this one and remove the eyes, which it has sculpted sockets in there. And I was able to straighten this one a little bit better, but these were crooked as well. And they're still crooked. It's just the way that they're sculpted, it just doesn't fit in straight for mine. So hopefully when I take this one apart, I'll have a slightly better result. I want to get that really perfectly straight, but we'll see. For hands, it has 2 open hands, reaching out, action hands. The hands are nicely sculpted, and the little web shooter trigger mechanism it looks pretty nice. And then it's got a single gripping hand, so this is a knock. Like, why not just have 2 of these? You know, I really wish it did. But this one can grab onto this piece. So this is a wired web piece that's all twisted around, and you can get it into different poses. So this is like the one he swings from, or it can be wrapped around and in crazy positions. He's got these other 2 hands here for the web shooters. And here's where, like, say, a Mezco figure, I really like it more than the Mafex, the way the Mafex does it, because the Mafex one just wraps around the wrist. This one recesses into the wrist joint, and disappears under there. So when you actually pop the wrist on, you can see that it disappears under the wrist, and it looks like it's coming out of his hand or out of the shooter. So, and then these pieces are just, they're nicely colored. They have like this pearl finish to them. They look really good. This is a very stiff plastic right here, by the way. You can hear it. As opposed to like this, which is a wire. But I really like the web pieces that they come with, and I wish this particular figure had come with more, kind of like the classic Spider-Man, which has a whole bunch of stuff. So, I mean, it's only got this one, the big wire piece, and then this spread shooter, and then this one glob right here. That's it, just these three webs. And the other Spider-Man came with a lot more than these, so I kind of wish it did. I mean, they're basically the same pieces, I believe, so... and then the other, like, kind of main accessory is this piece here. This is his, like, web wings. And you can open his arms up like this and then stick this around his waist. Just want to be careful. I'm very hesitant to, like, do this because it's just like, ugh. I feel like I'm going to rip the threads, but, you know, once you get it on there, it looks pretty sweet. It's about it, though. Like, can't do much else with it except for that pose. But it looks pretty good, in my opinion. And then it's also got, like, a peg on the back, so you could peg it onto the arm that comes with it, just like this. And have them up on the arm, like that. And speaking of the arm, it also comes with a magnetized clasp, like all the other Mezco Spideys do. And finally, it comes with the 5-inch Mezco... Oh, there's Boba Fett. It comes with the 5-inch Mezco stand with the logo on it. And then you could pop the little foot peg out and put the arm in. One thing that sometimes happens with Mezcos is they don't really fit on the peg well, but this figure does. Spidey fits really well on there, so happy to say that. One other quick thing with the accessories is that the Peter Parker head from the homemade suit actually fits on there pretty well. Looks pretty good. I think that it's a little high up. It sits a little high on the neck, but it's not too bad, and you can kind of pose it around. I'm afraid to try to remove this neck and try to replace the the neck with the flesh tone on it. I'm like a little bit nervous about trying to do that because I don't want to mess up the way the fabric is tucked in there. Okay, finally for the articulation, I'm going to start with the neck because this is my biggest gripe and it really detracts from the rest of the articulation. It just makes a lot of poses not that dynamic or expressive because the neck is so limited. So obviously like the head at the top articulates pretty well. It moves around nicely, you know, all the way around. It's really nice the way the head moves, but the neck just does not move much. And I'm actually going to do a little comparison here just to show you. So here's the extreme of this neck right here. So forward that far and back that far. Like you can't even really see like how much it goes. It's just the tiniest little bit. Okay, that's it. I can't. I mean, I put in pressure on it. I can't really get it to go any more than that. Okay. Now, take a look at the, this is going to be hard to see because of the collar, but if you look at the way the neck moves here, you know, even though the hood's there, you can see there's a ton of movement there. And then look at the other Mezco one, and this one's actually kind of limited in the neck, but it's got way more than that. So it goes back this far and then forward that far. So you can get a sense that it's, even this one's got more than the regular homecoming one. So yeah, I'm really let down by that because you can't really get them to look down very far and look at you in that crouching pose or even look up very far. So that's a big letdown for me, and it's a big detractor from this. If that neck moved, like the eyes I'm fixing, they'll be fine. And this like crotch thing where it's low, whatever, like you can shift it up, you can kick his leg out. In most positions, it doesn't look bad at all. But the neck is a big letdown for me. So it really keeps this from being a top tier Mezco, in my opinion. But otherwise, it's really good. Articulation-wise, it's probably the best of any Mezco besides the neck. There's a little bit of a butterfly joint. You can see his shoulder shifting a tiny bit, not a ton. You have to kind of force it a little bit. And then the arm can shift up this far, and there is a bicep swivel, which can be handy for trying to get the web shooter to turn the way you want it to turn. So that's nice. The elbows are double jointed, and you can get his arm up this far. He can swing back all the way pretty much and forward that much. And the wrist articulation is nice. And again, there's no elbow rotation. There's like ever so tiny bit, but it doesn't even stay. I don't think it's real. Okay, so moving into the chest, another spot with some good articulation. So he can curl back. So there's chest articulation, and waist. So he can curl back that far. Like, you can really push the limits on this guy. Really nice. And then he can crunch forward, and you just want to be careful with the suit. He can crunch forward that far. And again, I wish that head would look down more. It just won't. And there's a lot of good rotation for some really good poses that way. You can rotate a lot. Really good. I actually am afraid sometimes I'm going to pop the joint out. It can go so far, but it hasn't popped out yet. Okay, so, all right, so the waist and then into the hips. So the hips, if you do the splits, you're going to want to push that hanging crotch up. Like, you can see that crotch is low. So he can do the splits, but the fabric just is preventing it. He can kick forward really far, which is awesome for a Spider-Man. You know, if you crutch him forward, get that kick up there, pretty darn good. But again, that head just won't go down. And then the knees can come down this far. So really good double knee joints. There is a thigh swivel. And let's see, what else? So coming down, there's also no rotation in the calf there. But for Mezcos, I'm going to go ahead and say that this might be the best, at least of the ones I have, the best ankle rotation. It's really nice. So doing the little test here, he can be that wide at least. You know, that's just a quick pose there, but that's pretty wide for flat-footed. So really nice articulation. It can come out a lot as well. It can, and this is another place that I love. So it can go up that far. Very rare for Mezcos to go forward that much, and then it can go down really well. I gotta say, the articulation is nuts on this guy. This is the best Mezco articulation, I think, out there, except that the neck just prevents it from really being expressive. It's just such a letdown after having so much good articulation in the rest of the body. Just a bummer, really. So overall, I mean, I do like the figure a lot, and I think maybe I'm just a little too hung up on the neck aspect of it, but I do like the rest of the figure. Just look at this thing. I mean, it looks like the movie figure. Maybe the head is a little big. I've heard some people complain about that. I don't really see it myself. You know, it's a teenager, so it seems kind of natural to have a slightly larger head. But in general, this is an awesome looking figure. It's got quite a bit of posability. So I'm not saying the articulation is garbage, just that it's just missing that one spot. It makes such a big difference to me to have that. But generally, it's an awesome figure. I do like it. I'm glad I have it, but I'm not gonna put it up there with the rest of my MCU figures. It's good, but it could have been. I think it could have been a masterpiece if that neck was better articulated. But that's my review. Thanks for watching. Be sure to take a look at some of the reviews I have on the other Mezco MCU figures. And until next time, may the Force be with you. DorkLair.